This is the Defenders podcast on TV Podcast Industries. This time we're talking about Ms. Marvel, Episode 3, Destined.
So how does she convince everyone that she's good?
Good is not a thing you are, Kamala. It is a thing you do.
Podcasting is not a thing you are, it is a thing you do. Yes, welcome to TV Podcast Industries. More specifically, the Defenders podcast on TV Podcast Industries. And we are talking about Ms. Marvel, Episode 3, Destined. Much like it is written in the stars or in the multiverse or in an alternate universe, that there are three podcasters that come together to discuss Marvel shows or Marvel TV shows on Disney Plus on TV Podcast Industries. Yes, it was written in the stars and it is happening now. I am Chris and I'm bringing together the triumphant trifecta of podcasters because I'm finally back and I actually could manage my timetable to get in and discuss this. Yes, I am Chris and I am joined by my illustrious co-hosts.
Yes, absolutely. A different lineup every episode so far. I'm one of your hosts, Derek. I've been here all the time.
Yes, you have. And hello there, fellow defenders. I'm one of your other hosts, the third one, John.
There you go.
Yes.
There you go.
I had to do a bit of counting there.
I know, I had to do brain counting.
Yeah, it's kind of fun. We're on the third episode and we've had 5 hosts so far on the show. We've had Irene and Lucas for the first episode, myself and John for the second episode, and now we've got Chris, myself and John for the third episode. So it's kind of cool to get all the different opinions of all of the fellow defenders.
Yes, it's fun to be here. It is fun to discuss this. And oh my God, I'm going to spoil everything because I'm going to spoil my thoughts because it's a fun show to discuss because it's a fun show to watch.
Yes, it is.
There you go.
And it's it's the kind of show I'm really enjoying watching along with all the other stuff. There's lots of serious stuff out in the world. There's lots of serious shows that we cover on our podcast. And it's really nice to see a show like Ms. Marvel that's bringing a lot of fun to the world. This one a little bit more serious than the other episodes. A lot of exposition in this episode, but they were still such a lot of fun in this one. I really, really enjoyed it.
Yeah, no, agree. It's just a well-written, well-shot, well-acted show. And even I bring it in, even the style or the palette choices and the kind of even CGI overlays, the decisions there are just fantastic. Like seeing her text messages pop up in different ways as they talk about this very teen-based comedy. Because that's what, up until she gets powers, it's a teen-based comedy set in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Absolutely. And I'm like, I'm down for this.
Yeah. And much better than a sitcom. It's all based around the actual character of Kamala Khan being quite a funny character. Just in herself. She seems like a lot of fun and she has a lot of fun with her friends. So it's working really well for me. Yes.
So if you want to hear those other 2 initial episodes, you want to hear our thoughts on that, make sure you head on over to tvpodcastindustries.com and listen to episode 1 and episode 2 and then come back for this. But if you've already listened to those and you want to roll in with us to episode 3, you can do that too. But also make sure you send feedback on your thoughts for the whole series to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com. But we're going to dive straight in with the spoilerific chat. So Derek, do you want to tell us who gave us what with the episode details?
Absolutely, yeah. Executive producers for the series are Kevin Feige, Louis D'Esposito, Victoria Alonso, Bisha K. Ali, and Arby and Fala. As they like to be known, the 2 other directors of the series. Head writer for the series is Bisha K. Ali. We spoke about her a number of times before. British Pakistani stand-up comedian and screenwriter overrunning the show, or show running the show. This episode itself was directed by Mira Menon, an Indian-American director who has directed episodes of The Walking Dead and Titans, and we spoke about her before because she directed an episode of Marvel's The Punisher on Netflix. A very different Marvel series.
Definitely, yeah.
One I'd probably not recommend to the entire audience of Marvel, unlike Miss Marvel, but great to have Mira Menon on board for this one.
Definitely.
Good stuff.
Now, this one had lots of writers on it, and I think we'll probably get into the reasons why. The episode itself, the story was written by Freddie Syborn, and he wrote the teleplay for the episode with AC Bradley and Matthew Chauncey. We've spoken about them many times before because AC Bradley was the lead writer on Marvel's What If, and Matthew Chauncey also wrote many of the episodes of What If as well. So both of them on board, lending their experience on, I suppose, the overall universe of Marvel to Freddie Syborn's story for the episode. Worked on a lot of British TV. Freddie Syborn, as a British writer, worked on Killing Eve, Sex Education, and 3 full seasons of Bad Education with Jack Whitehall, a very funny comedy set in school. So
I was actually about to say we can't hold that against him.
Really? Did you not like that?
Because he does great stuff here. No, I'm not a fan of Bad Education or Jack Whitehall.
Wow.
But, hey, look, that's fine because like it is much like a smorgasbord, a charcuterie board of food. You can pick and choose content that you like.
Absolutely. Well, if you didn't like Jack Whitehall in Bad Education, I'd highly recommend him on Good Omens, a show that we also covered on TV Podcast Industries. He's quite central in that show as well. So check him out on there. He's very good, and I really did enjoy Bad Education. Lots of fun in there. John, do you want to tell us what they gave us with your synopsis for episode 3 of Miss Marvel, Destined?
Sure. After narrowly escaping capture by the Department of Damage Control, Kamala has been brought back to Cameron's house with his mum, Najma, and their housemates Adam, Salim, and Fariha. They were able to find Kamala because her use of Nani's bangle tapped into mystical energy known as Nur, or light. This energy comes from the Nur dimension, a dimension that Najma and her companions have been trying to get back to for a long time after they were exiled. The group is sometimes known as the Clandestine in their dimension, but also go by the name Jinn, and Kamala has the same power inside her. Even though the Jinn have been part of Kamala's childhood nightmares, she asks Bruno to help her activate her bangle to open the gateway for the Jinn. But after some research using Dr. Selvig's papers on interdimensional travel, he tells Kamala that the energy required makes it too dangerous. If you help them go home, some things might go boom. However, unwilling to wait for her to find a safe way to help them, the Jinn attack Kamala and her brother Amir's wedding. With the help of Cameron and Bruno, Kamala distracts and defends against the Jinn long enough for them to be arrested by the Department of Damage Control. But during the battle, Najma connected with the bangle and Kamala sees a train coming towards her. But she's not the only one who sees this vision. Her nanny in Pakistan also saw it and calls for Kamala and her mum to travel to her home in Karachi.
Ooh, we might be on the road in episode 4.
Yeah.
Very excited.
Sounds like it, yeah.
I'm very excited about that. It sounds like
travel program it'll turn into now. Be great.
Well, yeah, but I kind of like the idea. We've been very focused on New Jersey in these episodes, a place we haven't seen very much in the MCU, and we certainly haven't seen Pakistan in the MCU. So that's quite fun to have them go abroad in an MCU show.
Yeah, exactly.
Very much so, and I think it's going to be a lot of our discussion points because potentially we might be going to other dimensions. Ooh, by the end of this season too.
Maybe.
So, gentlemen, let's jump into our top points for this episode. We're going to talk about our 3 marvelous moments per episode. The first marvelous moment, number 1. Yes, I said first and number 1 because it is that marvelous. Aisha and the Jinn. Yes, we get the breakdown of potentially the powers, that she's no longer inhuman, she's basically half alien, multi-dimensional. She's got Jinn blood,
yes,
but also known as unseen blood, the clandestined blood, depending on many terms. So, guys, tell me, before I get into my thoughts, because I have some on this, what do you think?
I loved that they brought this in so quickly. You know, we've had the kind of mentions of the history of India and Pakistan and how it formed, I suppose. In the past, we had the idea of this around the British occupation. And I love that those were all kind of dropped pieces of history of the characters that we have, what led them to be in America, what led their family to split apart the way they did. And it felt like you were being told about their past, and this is now tying in really closely with the origin of the bangle, who these characters are. I loved how it was laid into this episode. This character of Aisha, the mysterious great grandmother of Kamala, how she disappeared, why she disappeared, and what was actually going on at the time. I loved that we had that opening. And there's another big connection into the MCU here as well. As they're searching for the bangle at the bottom of this pit, in British occupied Pakistan, we see the 10 rings marked out on the floor. Yep. We see the symbol of the 10 rings, an organization that we saw in the excellent Shang-Chi movie. So great to see a little tie-in there as well. You know, something that's been in the MCU right back to the first Iron Man movie as well. So, that's in itself kind of opens up this story to a wider world, which didn't happen in Moon Knight, remember? So that's kind of cool, that there's a possibility these will connect together into a much bigger universe. But I love this storytelling because lines that you think are just the characters telling you about their own past have now become part of the mythology of Miss Marvel as a show. I thought it was really well done.
Yeah, it really was. Like, I think, as well with, Shang-Chi, you know, you have that moment at the end with, Shang-Chi, Wong and Doctor Strange trying to figure out where sort of the signature coming off the 10 rings, that it seems maybe it's, you know, extraterrestrial at least.
Yes.
So again, having the 10 rings here, on the floor of the temple.
Yeah.
And, then also just who are the Jinn? It's interdimensional at least.
Yep.
So it really adds this sort of interesting flavor as well. Not only connection to Shang-Chi, but a whole range of other different elements just because of how intermeshed these movies along with the TV now are. So that was really, really interesting.
Absolutely. Also want to point out in that post-credit scene of Shang-Chi was also Carol Danvers as Miss Marvel and Bruce Banner, who's going to be in the upcoming She-Hulk TV series. So someone from all the shows and all the stories, that we're going to be getting told to us in the MCU coming up. So, so I kind of like that too.
The other thing I really liked about this was the fact that when you have Najima talking about, you know, being called the clandestine, but also known as the Majnun, or the unseen, or the Ajnabi, that the thing that she comes to is the Jinn. And then you have Kamala saying to Bruno, I'm the stuff of childhood nightmares. Absolutely. Because we've had the Jinn reference through some of the earlier episodes. It's that, you know, almost horror bedtime story for children. And so I just really, really enjoyed just that kind of freak out from Kamala.
Absolutely.
That she has the same stuff, you know, coursing through her that allows her to activate this bangle that the Jinn do. And also the obvious gin and tonic, comment from Bruno.
Yeah, that was
so
very good.
It was really, really good.
Yeah. Absolutely. And Kamala also says there are ghost stories, there are Jinn stories. The big difference is Jinn stories are scarier and they're real. So, told to them as children and to scare them, but they're real. She doesn't believe in ghosts. She believes in Jinn. I like that.
But even with Bruno as well, when Kamala's asking for his help around figuring it out, he goes, I don't know how I can help a bunch of ghosts and their average looking son.
I loved it. Nice really dig good. From Bruno.
Nice little dig.
Love it. Love it. Chris, what's your thoughts on the scene and the idea of the Jinn being brought into the MCU as well?
I'm loving it. So essentially what we're getting is with Shang-Chi, we had his group, his mother coming from an extra dimension, and tying in there, and probably the 10 rings having elemental kind of discussions there. You have the Asgard and the realms of Asgard, in Norse mythology. So you have, the kind of Frost Giants realm, again, talking potentially realms, dimensions, elements out in space, depending on how you think. We have a blue Kree hand. Let me rephrase it. We don't know if it's Kree. We have a band found on a blue severed arm.
Yes.
So shouldn't call it Kree, potentially not Kree, but the blue severed arm and the band itself links to the previous Marvel, Captain Marvel, where in the comic books, one of the very first Captain Marvels was a Kree who came to Earth, who was blue-skinned and had 2 bands around his hand, one on each hand. And we hear in this, there was 2 bands that were originally being looked for. Then they were the Nega bands. They brought power from the negative zone in, and that was how he could fly and shoot beams and was immortal and all these types of things.
Right.
Also gave him cancer, which was a whole other storyline, but we can get to that at some point in the future. But I'm loving how they're trying to bring all this in. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, I'm hoping they deliver, because one quick one, the Unseen, that's a call back to the Watchers. And Uau and the Watchers, they said in the What If, he mentions the Unseen.
Right.
As a group that could not be, they can't be watched. They can't, the only people he can't see are people who are in the space in between and the Unseen.
Right. Interesting.
So the Unseen is this maybe the group, or either the group or the place maybe? So again, it's just adding to this multi-dimension, multiverse questions.
Yeah, and yeah, just to say exactly, the Watchers was a main character in What If. Both the writers from What If here on board writing this episode of the show, so potentially a nice connection in there with the previous MCU show. Do you guys think, so we're having a bit of a chat about this beforehand, do you guys think it's starting to get really complicated in the MCU now? Because we've got, dimensions talked about here. We had dimensions in Doctor Strange was the big movie that talked about dimensions. We have now had loads of multiversal stuff, which is same universes, slight differences, all running parallel to each other, which is in the Multiverse of Madness and Spider-Man. We've had timelines within Loki where it's exactly the same universe, but with small changes and things happening. New timelines are created. There's lots of complicated things going on here. We've had realms, of course, as Chris mentioned back in the Asgardian stuff with Thor. So lots and lots of complicated ideas, all different to each other as well. So you could watch Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness yesterday, came out in Disney Plus, and you're watching loads of different universes on there, and here they're talking about different dimensions, which is a completely different concept in Miss Marvel, and people could start to get those confused or start to get them cross over with each other a bit.
Definitely. I mean, the only way you can kind of sort of describe it is that, dimensions and realms are within a universe. I mean, the thing actually that really complicates it for me is when you have the sacred timeline within a universe with multiple branches happening at the same time within the universe. So that makes it incredibly complex. Yeah. And it's like with the end credit scene in Multiverse of Madness, I'll try and keep the spoilers out of it, but there we have the multiversal incursion of another universe happening in another dimension, not as such within the Earth or 616 dimension.
Yes. Yeah.
It's happening in the dark dimension with Doctor Strange being asked to, sort that out.
Yeah.
So it is incredibly confusing. And I guess it's more just that, you would use, as you say, you'd use dimensions just as another way of saying multiverse. So you're not saying multiverse all the time.
Do you want me to really confuse you?
I was trying to make
you always do, Chris.
Oh, thank you. But we are going to the quantum verse very soon.
Well, that's the other side of it.
Again, and we're going to spend time in the quantum verse. And do you know who'd be really good at this? Mr. Fantastic. Reed Richards. He's well known being a very smart man who can take complex ideas and bring it down and boil them down.
As well, Bruno can do that as well. He had to explain the energy requirements of interdimensional travel.
Yeah. Yes. Impressive.
But also this, I think you're right. It's really complex. It can be confusing.
Yeah.
Certainly, with Quantumania, you've got that side of it as well.
I'm really sorry, fellow defenders. The whole point of this conversation was to try and make sure it wasn't confusing, because all we're talking about in this show is dimensions. But we've now brought in all of the rest of them, because this show is just about dimensions. I was trying to make sure that we're separating it out from all the multiversal discussions and the timeline discussions that have been brought in. This show is just about a parallel dimension or another dimension where the Jinn are from.
So
that's what it is.
You're right. Ultimately, it's just a dimension.
Yeah.
But my additional point was, it makes me even more convinced the way the MCU will go is then to simplify this complexity with the incursions, with ultimately, and still using it as a theory with Doctor Doom and Secret Wars.
Yeah. Oh no, that's what. Look, we're going to have a couple of things before, but that's the next big 10-year arc.
Yeah, convinced.
Bringing it back, bringing it all the way back. I want to call out one cool little thing and one little snippet using the Clandestined, which is essentially they are a group from the comic books of super-powered individuals who are based on Adam of the Destined, and a Jinn. They were the kind of spawn of that. They were a family back from the 90s. They were immortal. Think the Eternals, but not the Eternals. But super-powered, each having a bit of a different power, all immortal, around for hundreds of thousands of years. Not really superheroes, but kind of occasionally threw into the kind of X-Men tie-ins because they were kind of like Inhumans, but not really. They were more kind of that type of thing, and they were kind of like an X-Men because they were a group of family. Yeah, it's weird, but it's such a random pull. And that's why I'm like, yeah, cool. The Marvel Universe has been around for 70, 80 odd years. And there's so many comic books. Like, you can start to pull these really interesting ideas out, slightly tweak them and make them sit within the MCU. And it feels natural. Absolutely. Because that's the thing. And taking it back, boiling this all down, they made the Clandestine and the Unseen and the power of the Jinn being from a slightly different dimension, and Kamala's powers being because she has blood from that realm, and basically why they need the band to get back via this flashback in. It all made sense.
Yeah.
And they drip-fed small bits about Pakistan and how they were from there and how they fled the British occupied areas, and then the train scene when she got her powers, and then like we saw her fall back into something with purple eyes, all of that. But they made it work because I understood. Okay, yes, probably I have a bit more room for understanding because of the comic books, but they're choosing a different. They're not making her an alien or anything like, or an Inhuman. They're making their own version, and it made complete sense in a 6-minute conversation. Less.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you start to add these points together, which they'll do on the show itself, exactly as you said, Chris, she went effectively in that first episode. Now I'm guessing she went through the gateway that the Jinn have been trying to find for this many centuries, or they say they've been there a century, from the conversation that Bruno has with Mr. Khan when Mr. Khan translates the Urdu description of what Jinn are. It sounds much more like they were banished millennia ago almost. It sounds like they've been here a very long time fighting to get back to their original dimension. So I like how it's playing out. I like how they pulled it together, and it makes much more sense to connect it to this story of the Pakistani immigrants in the US. It makes much more sense to bring in the Jinn as being part of this because, as you say, it's been mentioned since the first episode, this idea of Jinn being connected to their culture. Which I really like, very similar to the Egyptian culture being pulled in much tighter to the Moon Knight story than it was in the comic book series. So it's not, you say we have comic book knowledge. We absolutely do. We've read comic books, but none of this is the exact story taken from the comic books. And it's the right choice. Trying and shoehorn in the Inhumans to explain who Kamala Khan is in the MCU would have made a lot less sense than what they've actually done here in pulling in and recreating some of the stories and some of the origins. I think it's really, really good. But I was going to say, sorry, it does seem like, yes, she fell back into that dimension, and possibly because the last person that put on this bracelet, Aisha, her great grandmother, was trying to search for that opening to that dimension the last time that bangle was worn, right? So potentially that's why Kamala fell straight into that dimension to begin with, or fell straight in the night, let's say.
Yes. And yes, I think before we move on to our kind of marvelous moment number 2, I do want to just touch on that one small thing you said, which was, it seems like they were banished. And what I'm getting the feeling of is, do you remember Superman 1 and 2 with Christopher Reeves, where you have the banished Kryptonians?
Yeah.
Like,
Zod.
that's the feeling. Yes, Zod, and that kind of spinning realm where they were in the I'm getting that feeling as well, where she becomes her Superman to battle these similar beings with similar powers, but less so, because they're more just immortal and kind of thing. I'm getting some of those, and it's easy to understand. So
Exactly.
I think that's fun.
Exactly. And it is interesting, isn't it? But the first time I watched it, I thought the fall was really quick. I thought the change from some really happy group of people that have lived together for ages, I thought that change felt really quick. Watching it again, there's so many clues. Even the fact that they call themselves the Clandestine. That's, we're the shadow people from another dimension. Evil. We're bad guys, right? They're saying it almost straight away from that moment onwards. And they say they were exiled from their dimension. They say that in the story that they're giving to Kamala, trying to convince her to be sent back. Well, if you're exiled from a dimension, someone in that dimension probably doesn't want you there.
Yeah.
It's all setting up those elements. And then particularly that discussion with Bruno and Mr. Khan, where he explains who the Jinn are. They've been banished here to be punished and to live out their entire lives in this dimension, not allowed to go home. It sounds much more nefarious from that early description of who they are.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of it. So I really want to see where this goes now that they are in custody, because marvelous moment number 2. Let's all go to a wedding.
Yeah, let's take a little break from the Jinn. Just to go back to the joy of Miss Marvel and what's so good about it. The Amir's wedding, finally seeing it on screen right from the beginning. There's been this conversation about this big wedding for the family coming up. And I love how it plays out. I love the joy that's completely evident from this. I love that we have the scene of them exchanging vows. I'm sure in Muslim ceremonies, or in this particular type of Muslim ceremony, I'm sure this is very traditional, but I love that each partner is asked 3 times whether they take their partner to be their lawfully wedded husband or wife. I think that's really, really interesting, because they can have a bit of fun with it. They play along with it, and everybody really gets into the ceremony. Everybody's laughing and enjoying the service. And then we go into a wonderful, joyous dance sequence at the wedding itself, which is great fun to watch. If you've ever been at any Pakistani wedding, any Indian wedding, there's a lot of joy that's around the service itself, and I love how it came across on screen. I love that everybody got involved, including Bruno, including the bride's parents, all getting involved in this really well choreographed wedding. We get a little mention of it from Kamala talking to Nakia about the fact that they have been taking dancing lessons to get this all down and ready for the wedding. I know one of my colleagues at work had her wedding. She had 20 participants in her dance for the wedding, and they were training for months in advance of the wedding. So it's something that we don't do.
I'm kind of glad, because much like my singing, my dancing is so not good.
It depends on the song, Chris. I've seen you dance to songs you like. That may not win any awards on Strictly, but you dance like people are supposed to dance to those songs.
Yes, like no one's watching.
Yes, or just dancing.
I absolutely love this. This, for me, I love the 3-time asking, and it's just more like, are you sure? Are you sure? Are you really sure?
Yeah, exactly.
It's fun. Like many aspects of this show, nearly all of it is very culturally relevant to the Pakistani Muslim families and the things they do and how they do it, and like the mosque and reminding people to take their shoes off, and like the little things like that, and just everything just pulls from that, and having this very, I'm assuming, authentic wedding, until I'm told differently. And it's strange. Within the course of 2 weeks, we've had 2 great dance numbers. For those who are also listening to some of our other coverage, we are covering The Boys over on Prime Video. Very different shows.
Yeah, very different show.
Very different shows, but both had dance numbers. And I'm enjoying it. Yeah. Bring back the musical dance numbers. That is what I'm saying.
Good at watching them, not good at participating in them.
Yes, exactly. This does give us some nice additional scenes where we have Kamala's father and her brother kind of having talks about courage, and Kamala listening, and that kind of impacting her viewpoints later. We have her scene with her mother in that lead up as well, with her scraped knee. So this is very much the heart aspect of her family and her, and leading towards her becoming the hero that we know she will become later on.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. There's also the Mehendi, the pre-wedding event at home, which was, again, just that, all the family. I love that, Amir's, fiance, was just getting all these different tattoos and had to be fed because she couldn't move.
Yeah.
The shoes.
That's your ideal, isn't it? It's just getting fed
Well,
like
that's it. It was
grapes
like
and cheese and stuff, not moving.
the shoes being taken as well. Sort of little nod to the shoe thief from the mosque as well. But also we get that moment with where Bruno gives Kamala her eye mask or face mask for her costume, that's been left, and the great little chat. I mean, as Derek and I were talking about it, it's almost like the Spider-Man chat there between Uncle Ben and Peter Parker happening between Sheikh Abdullah and Kamala, where he says, "Good is not the thing you are, it's the things you do."
Exactly.
Really layering in, as you say, Chris, how Kamala sort of takes those on board to sort of develop as this new superhero. And I think, for me, I thought the two pieces with her parents, both Maniba to Kamala, I thought that was really, really special, actually. Just, where she says that America was my mountain, that her and Yusuf were so excited, really looking forward, to moving over, but it was just, so difficult because they felt so alone. But in the end, over time, they found the mosque, their family, and they all, loved her. And she's just using that as a way of, you will sort of reach the top of this mountain that is currently the biggest thing that you see at the bottom of this. So I thought that was just really, really good. And Yusef's to Amir, again, Kamala just overhearing it, that kind of prep talk almost, where he says, you choose between love or fear, and if you choose love, well then you choose Junoon, and you choose family, and you'll never be alone. So like, you really get the sense of support from the two parents. Absolutely. And then I think, like you guys have said, I just thought the dance was fantastic. It was completely wholesome and flavoursome in that sense. It kind of tickled all those senses, the colour, the movement, the fun. We see the kid who was taking the shoes of Amir at the Mehendi, you see him with the mini Hulk suit that was supposed to be Kamala's, going to AvengerCon.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I really just loved how Bruno just getting into the spirit of it. And of course, then you have, Brown Jovi sort of kick in, and the joke that, they also do bar mitzvahs and Diwali as well.
Everything.
So they basically do everything. So we really, really loved this whole sequence around the wedding, the pre-wedding, and the whole thing, where family is coming together at the wedding, and just how that impacted Kamala, I thought was really good.
Yeah. And really important for the character of Kamala Khan as well. Kamala in the comic books is a person surrounded by a team, almost. Her friends and her family are really close to her and are really important to her in the comics. It's unlike Peter Parker, who tends to end off alone and tends to go through all of his troubles alone. She is surrounded by people that care about her. A lot of people who do actually know her secret identity in the comic books. A lot of people who know who she is and are there to support who she is as a person. So those conversations from Maniba, particularly saying, find your family, find the people that will support you, from her father saying, find your family and you'll never be alone. All of those things are really important to developing this character of Kamala. And she is one of the youngest characters in the MCU. So though she's still quite malleable as a person, as a personality of who she's going to become in the future. So really important to have them. You mentioned Maniba's speech about America being the mountain. As someone who's emigrated before to other countries, we've both emigrated to other countries. That is a really tough experience for anybody when you're going to a brand new country on your own. I loved how she described the loneliness of it and the mountain that it is to climb to make yourself fit in there in whatever way you can. It is massively difficult for anybody who's moved to another country. Go talk to an immigrant, someone who's moved over to the country that you live in. Talk to them, welcome them there, because it's really difficult to penetrate, especially if you're not someone that goes to some kind of community group or to a church like Maniba's gone to here. They can become the only family that you have in a country. So reach out to someone who's immigrated to your country.
Hi, John.
John's Irish
reach
now.
out to you?
It's a bit too late for that now,
Yeah,
Chris.
it is. I absolutely love this again. I'm just going to end on 2 quick points. The first being is her good speech.
Mm-hmm.
It's from episode 5. It's from issue 5 of the comic books.
Mm-hmm.
It's that baked in. It's not a nice new story, but it literally is her great power, great responsibility, and is echoed nearly every volume she goes through within the even in the Champions, kind of one of her supergroups. It's echoed there, and it becomes her mantra's too strong of a term. It's the things she even says to other people. She says it to Miles, as well, like the other Spider-Man, Miles Morales. It really isn't great, and I'm loving that. And yeah, I think just overall, like, how they do everything with Amira's wedding up until the point where it all goes to a fire alarm. I was going to go use a different term, but let's just say it goes to a fire alarm. Yeah. And that brings us to Marvel's point number 3.
Absolutely.
And that's really, this is the interesting one. This is the kitchen battle, her embiggening hands, and just really the ending of this, because jumping straight to the end, she doesn't tell her family. She doesn't lean on her family, because her family go, "What happened? Where were you? Talk to us." And she goes, "Nothing. It was nothing." So she hasn't learned that final bit yet. She has,
for the moment.
And
yeah.
Quick question. What's the over-under? What are we betting that we see Carol Danvers by the end? A quick cameo in the very last episode.
I don't think we're going to see her in the show.
No, even an end credit scene?
Unless the end credit scene is part of something for the Marvels, which was filmed or has been filmed, which is entirely possible. The post-credit scene could be the trailer for Marvels. That's entirely possible.
Yeah.
I don't think we see Carol Danvers walk onto set and do a scene with Kamala in here unless it's something directly linked to Marvel. So I think it might be post-credit. But I don't think it's going to get us there. I think we have a lot to cover in the show itself, and I think they like to keep those a bit more separated, that we've seen anyway from the MCU shows that we've seen on Disney so far. But who knows? They have filmed together.
I was imagining a Carol Danvers flying outside her window at the end going, "Hi, can we talk? I see you're calling yourself Miss Marvel," or something like that. And then it's fake. That's your thing. And then that leads you into the Marvels.
Yeah, that still feels like post-credit.
Oh, yes, 100% post-credit, but I think by the end of the season. Yeah. But let's bring it back to the kitchen battle. Like, the fight scenes, this whole aspect. What did you guys think?
First, really quick one. I hated how this started. Cameron running in at the exact moment that Bruno was finally going to get his slow dance with Kamala and going, "I need to talk to you right now, this very second." Oh my God, just give it 2 more minutes for them to have at least a slow dance before he goes off to Caltech. Oh, what are you doing, man? But that was my initial point. John, what did you think of the?
Yeah, I loved this fight sequence. Certainly to Bon Jovi, thought that was really good. It was certainly sort of the rhythm of it was to the music in the kitchen, which was really nice. I thought it was really quirky. Some great bits of tension. It almost felt a little bit like Jurassic Park with the raptors coming into the kitchen with Kamala hiding around the corners and so on.
I thought the exact same thing. Literally that scene where you have one of the team walking between the kitchen cabinet. She's hiding just down one And I was like, oh, that's Jurassic Park. That's 100% what that was a homage to.
So it was really good. I love that, she doesn't lean on her family, but in effect, her friends, or at least Bruno and her new friends in Cameron, do come to help her.
Absolutely.
And to sort of fight off the different members of Cameron's mother's troop, I guess. So I really enjoyed all of this. Yeah, like yourself, Derek. It's a shame that Bruno's dance before he heads off to Caltech was interrupted. Loved, stick with the classics from Kamala as she sets off the fire alarm. All really good. And the kitchen staff. I mean, how many times do you see that in movies where people are being chased through the kitchen and the kitchen staff are still sort of chopping away, boiling away, whatever it is, until the guns start. And of course they end up being collateral damage. And they're kind of like, no, we're not going to get out, almost as though, okay, here we go, they're all going to die. Yeah. And then one of them gets sort of clotheslined by one of the Jinn, and it's like, oh, hell no, I'm getting out. So and then they all kind of just evacuate. Yeah. So really nice bit of humor as well. I was just kind of more interested that whatever the weapons that the Department of Damage Control were using here, which I know that Chris has got his theory on that. It was just how easily they were actually taken into custody by the Department of Damage Control. It felt I just felt, okay, maybe they're not as powerful as you would think. Well, given that literally the Jinn has scared so many people, dare I say it, up the creek without a paddleless, for so long. So, I just wondered, but they were obviously using new tech, that could incapacitate them in that sense.
Yeah. So I'll throw my theory in here now, which is I believe, that damage control is morphing into what was a unit of the Shield from the comic books called the Cape Killers, which was back in when they did Civil War in the comic books. Shield had a division called Cape Killers, which were essentially sent out to hunt unregistered superhumans. And they were basically given guns that could kind of incapacitate people. They were given suits that kind of could take a hit from Luke Cage or Captain America. And they could still live and work and breathe as humans themselves, just normal Shield agents. Yeah. I think based on just even the look, it's pretty close to the comic books. Like just the face mask and the gun, like the whole shebang, bar someone coming in on a jetpack, which they have the drones. We've seen the drones. That could happen pretty much later too. Yeah. But it looks like the Cape Killer. So I was like, it looks like Damage Control is maybe basically even on episode 1 and that kind of post-credit scene, they're building this. They are there to monitor, control, and detain, unknown enhanced people.
Potentially, yeah, absolutely. And again, the only shield that we have is the shield that's on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the TV show. They're the only shield that we have. So again, would be very complicated to try and bring them into the MCU again, bring them into the MCU TV shows, let's say. I hope they do at some point in the future, of course. There's no reason why they can't, but they're using damage control as that proxy for S.H.I.E.L.D. in these episodes. So expanding them and expanding their capabilities effectively until hopefully they get subsumed back into S.H.I.E.L.D. So we have S.H.I.E.L.D. again. That would be great. But yeah, I did really enjoy it. I like the battle. I like that, we have Kamala who has been training, with her abilities, but she is in real defensive mode in here. She's not attacking at all. She's blocking. She's protecting. She's stopping everybody. I was expecting a moment at the end of the battle when Amir and his wife come back in and see what's happened to the room that they've been preparing for, this wedding that they've been preparing for so long. There's a great comedy moment with Amir as the fire alarm goes off for the first time, where he runs up to where all the money has been. He's already been moaning about the fact that he only has 700 quid in his bank account, so he runs up and grabs all the money off the counter and runs out with it. But the first thing that Bruno does when he comes in, for example, is pick up one of their bridal gifts and throws it at the djinn. So lots of destruction to all the tables, lots of destruction to this room. So I was just expecting a moment where, you know, like in Jurassic Park, where they walk back in and see the signage of opening soon, falling to the ground. You know, I was expecting the whole room just to collapse in on itself after this big battle.
Well, and I mean, Kamala, I guess she goes offensive with her powers when Bruno gets basically whipped with the belt.
That's it, yes.
And she uses the big fist to take them and knock them all back.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's the only time is where one of her friends was, you know, sort of attacked and hurt. So I kind of liked that she did that, seeing the fist element come into to this fight.
Yeah.
I kind of wondered, I'm guessing it was just a belt ultimately, but it seemed really long, the belt. So I wondered if it was a special belt. So
it was a weapon. It was,
exactly.
It was his.
So with Bruno holding his hand, you know, not feeling too good, I was like, they're going, okay, is that just because, he's been hit with a belt really hard, or is there something else because of their powers?
It felt like each one of them produced a weapon at the point when they were attacking Kamala, all powered in some way by the Noor, creating a weapon in some cases, or revealing a weapon in other cases. But they all seem to be powered. They all seem to have their own...
Well, at least his pants didn't fall down when he took his belt off.
Exactly.
That would have been hilarious.
That's his other Noor power, is to keep his pants up when he takes off his belt.
They all pulled... So, like, the very first weapon we saw, is they're all hidden. They're all, like... One was kind of literally seemed to be like a...
Well, one was a spear, I guess.
The spear came out of nowhere, and so did the mace. Kind of like he took out a small kind of cylindrical kind of rod, and then it just kind of like transformed.
Yeah.
The belt was kind of around his waist. He took it off, and then it became this massive whip, like extended out.
Exactly.
So is it something that they can touch something? Because I mean, ultimately, Cameron's mum picked up a frying pan. So
that was only to scare Kamala.
Yes.
That was
so she didn't have anything.
She didn't pull out a weapon at that point. But I'm guessing it's something similarly to Kamala using her powers to create these hard light shapes, whatever shape she wants to. They're using their powers to enhance weapons or to create weapons in some senses.
Maybe.
To pull something out of midair, effectively. None of them were carrying those weapons before they started to attack with them. So.
Well, it looked like they were. That's the thing. The belt, for example, he was wearing one and he whips it out. I think it's more just their weapons are kind of, it's their tech, essentially. The Noor tech is essentially like a small collapsible spear the size of a tiny rod, and you click it and clicks out. And the same with the belt. It was just a normal looking belt, and he takes it off, presses the button, and it kind of becomes this massive metal whip. It looked more because they were all so similar, it looked tech-esque to me. And I'm hoping that's kind of it is, because then that's not similar to, say, the dragon scales of the Shang-Chi elements, or the Asgardian kind of metal using Uru for Meow Meow, and kind of the Stormbreaker, the two different weapons for the Asgards that Thor uses. Like, and we saw the dwarf using different weapons, and it was an actual, like, it's tech. It's
right,
like, as basically Tony Stark calls out. Anyway, I just thought it was cool.
Yeah. I just wonder, as I say, I wonder if they're tapping into their Noor powers, because they have those as well.
Yeah.
They have them inside of themselves. Bruno has mentioned this, bangle has unlocked the powers of Kamala. I'm not too sure by the end of this season whether she's going to need the bangle around her arm to continue to tap into those powers. That doesn't seem to be the way they're saying it. They're saying that she has that power inside of her. So, I wonder if she's learning using the bangle, and then she can get rid of it and still have the powers at the end of the series. I wonder if that's going to be the case. So, interesting. But want to stress again, because you might have missed it, Chris, you got what you've been wanting from about 10 of the shows, that we've been watching. You have mentioned repeatedly this fight that was in, Shaun of the Dead, which was done to music. Here we had the Bon Jovi song Living on a Prayer, and the fight was timed to that music.
Yeah.
It was, there was moments when punches were landing to the drum beat. That was fantastic. Great to see it in here. And you finally got what you wanted, Chris.
Oh, I did. Yeah. Absolutely enjoyed the hell out of it. If they had chosen a better song, I would have been more joyous. I'm not a Bon Jovi fan. I'm sorry. My favorite version of Bon Jovi right now is Brown Jovi, because they were like just the puntastic version of them.
You're probably the only person in the world. It's probably your age, Chris, because you probably grew up after Slippery When Wet was famous. There was time before Slippery When Wet and time after Slippery When Wet. The album Slippery When Wet was absolutely massive. The last hairband album, and then we got
I'm so
Guns
glad
N' Roses.
you were talking about an album there.
You missed the conversation in episode 2 then, Chris, because they talked all about Bon Jovi Slippery When Wet.
I know.
Yeah. And of course the kind of post-battle here, or post-kitchen fight, is that we have Nakia finding out that Kamala is Nightlight.
Yes.
So again, she has now been revealed to Nakia. And then back at home, we have, as we discussed earlier, about the potential that we're moving to Head for the Sun, travel program from back in the day, is that we're off to Karachi.
Yes.
Yeah. Which will be fantastic. I've been to Karachi and in Pakistan back in the day to look at glaciers.
Have you?
Yes.
Very cool.
Almost died on a mountain road in the Karakoram Himalayas. So it'll be great. I'm guessing, like with Egypt being in Hungary, this will be Karachi that's based off a sort of a studio lot in Georgia in the US. But maybe, nonetheless, it's great that we're going to Pakistan and Karachi.
Yeah, that's very cool.
I was actually just off air, was asking Derek whether this was a 6 or 8 episode kind of arc, and if it's a 6, okay, we've hit the halfway point.
It is 6, yeah.
I'm very happy with the halfway point that we've received up to this, because, like, if you're taking us to Egypt like we did in Moon Knight, Moon Knight's big Egypt aspect was the kind of final arc. That's what we're getting here.
Yeah.
So potentially we're now moving from Jersey to Pakistan, and we'll probably get thrown back to Jersey on like the last episode, as they need to go save the family kind of thing. Yeah. But I'm okay with that. I think like it changes the scenery slightly.
Yep.
Absolutely. Absolutely really exciting. Anything else about the episode you guys want to pull out?
I'll take one quick one. We have an Eric Selvig name drop, which is fun. So just for those who do not know or don't remember, Eric Selvig is the professor from Thor, who has joined us for multiple kind of versions. Kat Dennings, Darcy was also worked with him, and Jane Foster, and he went on to he was in the Avengers. He's the premier scientist when it comes to interdimensional or different realm-based travel and science.
Yes.
And he's name-checked in a few different other MCU shorts and films and things like that.
He could do a travel program for interdimensional travel.
Yes. Welcome to Asgard. Here, today, we're going to see then next. Oh, look, Hercules. We're on Mount Olympia. Oh, there's Thor naked. If you've yet to see the Love and Thunder trailer, you will know what I'm talking about.
Well, Dr. Eric Selvig was the last naked member of the cast of Thor in Thor 2: The Dark World. He did get naked in that movie, so yes, he's a kindred spirit there with Thor. Good stuff. Anything else, John, from the episode you want to call it?
Just 2 things. I think there were some really good lines in this. We've mentioned about the good is not a thing you are, it's a thing you do. I love the little cute line from Kamala to Nakia as she sort of body flops face first into Kamala's bed, and she goes, "What's wrong, Squishy?" I thought that was cute.
That's very cute.
And the other line I
love that she calls her after Nakia says that she's gotten on the board. She goes, "Dude," and Nakia goes, "Bro." Back to each other as they're
really good.
Congratulations.
Like such a great use of language, but just the cuteness, the affection there in calling, her best friend Squishy.
Yeah.
And then I just loved Kamala's deadpan to Bruno, where she says, you know when you've fallen off a drone and fallen off a van and banged your knee and you don't feel it till later, you know, then that was just a nice little moment. Or was it to Mom, I think, Maniba? Yeah.
It's Bruno.
It was to Bruno. I thought
to Bruno, because he's the only one that knows that she's been chased down by damage.
She wouldn't say that to her mother.
Yes,
indeed.
Yeah.
Yet.
But I really like that because, again, you don't get to see very many superheroes licking their wounds afterwards. And I love that she gets her mom to put a plaster on as well. Yes. So that's really cute. It's really cute. One serious moment in the episode that I don't think we've talked about is Nakia's discussion effectively about a government agency coming into a mosque and asking them to as good Muslims to report bad Muslims, and Nakia saying that this is something that really damages the relationship. You know, we've heard that description of Maniba saying that this is her family. This is the only way she was able to find her way into America. This difficult mountain to climb, this creation of community that they have, the Illuminantes, you know, how close this group is as a union of people, and having this government agency coming in and going, report on your neighbors, report on your friends, report on your family to us, is a really disruptive thing for the community. I liked how it was played here from Nakia, this idea that
I loved it, yeah.
You're not a good Muslim if you don't report your neighbors.
It's a great way of stuffing it to them. Yeah. So I thought that scene was really great with Sheikh Abdullah and Nakia basically questioning Agent Diva and her goons that come in, you know, no respect taking off, no taking off of the shoes, you know, it's just that other target on our backs. And like you say, the idea of a good or bad Muslim, it's like, anyone that, you know, they're good or bad, you know, what does that mean? It comes so loaded.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Yeah,
exactly as Nakia says. Is it because you saw her coming into a mosque? Is it because it's a member of our community? You know, is that why this is so important to you to get us to report them?
Exactly.
So, I thought that was a really good, strong point in a really good episode.
Yeah, I'll quickly call out for me, Iman Vanali, who plays Kamala, and Yasmin, who plays Nakia, and Bruno, like all of them, Matt, I'm getting strong Tom Holland Zendaya vibes, where over the course of those three Spider-Man films, and kind of Civil War and all that, like, we really got to know the character of Peter Parker that Tom Holland brings, and how, and basically to the point where we became so, like, we loved them so much, and we kind of really bonded with these version of the characters. I'm getting those same young actor style with loads of potential.
Yeah.
With these actors who are playing Kamala Khan and Nakia and all that, because the quick kind of bro dude that you guys mentioned, that kind of is that fun part, that is that kind of, but then also the serious moments and the like standing up where it is bringing serious themes in. So I do think by the end of these less than, let's say 5 hour plus kind of movie, that will be quite similar to, say, the overall Spider-Man kind of appearance. And I'm like, I think we'll be bonded enough with these characters as well.
Absolutely. It's really funny that you mentioned that, because Matt Lintz, who plays Bruno in the show, was just interviewed this week and did say that he was in the running, in the final running for the role of Peter Parker in Civil War when Peter Parker was first cast, which is really interesting considering Matt Lintz is 21 years old right now. Tom Holland's 26 years old right now, so 5 years younger than Tom Holland. That could have been our Peter Parker. And I think there's definitely elements of him. I love him in this role. I love him as the really smart, techie guy, who's pining after, the woman that he loves, and she's paying him no mind. That's another version of Peter Parker, definitely, that we could have seen in the MCU. Love Tom Holland to bits. Absolutely love his version of Peter Parker. And it feels like they just went a different way, by casting, Tom Holland. But it would have been interesting. I see why they're bringing, Matt Lintz on board here. He's great in the role and really good to see him. He, as I mentioned before, was in, Walking Dead for quite a long time. So I've known him for a couple of years as an actor, but I think he's really playing a great role in here in Miss Marvel. Good stuff.
Yeah,
good stuff.
Exactly. I do think the reason that they didn't put him in is because we would have seen a kid getting knocked around. But anyway, I don't think that's how we'll see it. We've got Tom Holland's head. But gentlemen, Tom Holland is not in this show.
No, he's not.
So we are going to close out our thoughts after all those notes, and I will ask, do you defend Miss Marvel episode 3, Destined, Derek?
Definitely defend this episode. I'm loving this series. As I said before, it's a great, refreshing show to watch every week, and this was so joyous with the wedding and gave us a really good context and exposition about who the bad guys are, where the power comes from. I really like that. And I really like where it's setting us up to go for the rest of the season. Really, really enjoyable. My initial criticism of the episode I watched it the first time was that twist of this lovely new group of people that Kamala met. Then suddenly the next day they're attacking her wedding, going to kill everybody in the room. Just suddenly felt like it came out of nowhere. It felt like you needed a little scene of one of them acting a little bit evil, because they all felt like really nice characters, really lovely people, all playful with each other. And then suddenly it was like, right, no, can't wait anymore. We're walking down to this wedding to kill everybody. But when you watch it the second time and see all the clues and hints that they are bad guys, which I probably should have picked up on the first time, once you see them all and get them all put together, it all makes sense. So I think it was a really good episode of the show.
Well, I think it was even a surprise for Cameron, to be honest. You know, you
didn't realize they
were
be that evil. Yeah.
Like, as he says, you knew this would be dangerous, you know, because he's like with Kamala, it's like, it could be dangerous. Yeah. She needs more time. Like, he's fine with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
His mother ain't.
That's true.
Exactly. Johners, do you defend this episode of Miss Marvel?
Yeah, I really do defend this episode of Miss Marvel. I give it 4.5 gin and tonics. That's gin with a D, out of 5.
Nice. You really want to go to the gin dimension, don't you?
Yeah.
That would be awesome. Whether I'd return from the gin dimension is another matter entirely.
And that's the last we ever saw.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or whether I return alive from the gin dimension.
Or sober.
Or sober, yes, exactly. But I absolutely loving this series. I think, you know, those key leads of Kamala, Bruno, and Nakia are absolutely fantastic. I love the whole picture of their family around and their community around this family, around Kamala. It feels really upbeat, but it feels natural. It still feels like they're going through issues and challenges like we saw with the Department of Damage Control arriving at the mosque. That kind of challenge. The challenge personally for Kamala and for Amir with on the wedding day, and we see just how, you know, fantastic just the little talks from the mother and the father. Really good, you know, really good action. Loved the fight scene through the kitchen. You know, it's just bubbly, the whole thing, and I don't just mean in a happy way, but everything just fizzes along really nicely. I know when we first talked about, you know, the episode, and you said how, well, the change was suddenly really quick. And I said, well, it's a 6-episode season. They don't need loads of, you know, lovey-doveyness. They did it, and they did it at the start, along with a flashback to 1942 with the start of it. So, like, this whole episode covered just a fantastic range. You know, I almost thought that Amir's wedding would be at the end after everything was sorted out, rather than bang in the middle, and would have Cameron's mum, Najma, coming in, sort of going all gin on them, basically, along with the rest of the crew. So, yeah, really enjoyed this. I give this 4.5 gin and tonics out of 5.
Excellent.
Chris, do you defend this episode?
Yeah, this is one of my favorite shows on the MCU so far. I think it because it reminds me of Spider-Man Homecoming, that style, that kind of bubbliness that, like I said, this would be a good Muslim-based comedy just set in the MCU without any superheroics. And I'd enjoy it, and I'd watch it, and I'd have fun with it.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the fact that then I do then enjoy, and I pick up all the extra Marvel stuff, and I'm like, yeah, this is cool. And like, I think this is going to probably be quite high for a lot of people. those who watch it. I think for some people, they're kind of like, oh, there's another girl. Isn't that the girl from Doctor Strange? I think there's some of that happening out in the universe, but that's just the universe.
Really?
But overall,
I think like with any of that kind of criticism, we'll just ignore people like that. They clearly have no idea what they're talking about.
Exactly. Yeah. But no, I absolutely love this. I enjoy the hell out of it, and I'm really looking forward to the final kind of 3 episodes.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Right. I think we need to go over to the slushy bar to have a slushy. Since we're in a Kamala Khan show, she can't go to the pub, so we need to get over to the slushy bar.
Oh, I wanted to go to the gin and tonic universe.
Yes, maybe just for this one.
We can go there.
It is question 3 for the slushy bar quiz. And this episode's question is, what is Mr. Khan's special synthetic treat?
But he told Bruno not to tell anybody, John.
Well, we're going to expose him. Yusef, you will be exposed on Ms. Marvel's slushy bar quiz.
I love it. Do you want to get the question one more time?
Yes. Question is, what is Mr. Khan's special synthetic treat? We all have them. So what is it, fellow defenders? Send your answers through to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com. Send them in all at the end once all 6 questions are there, posted up on our website at tvpodcastindustries.com.
Or in the podcast, of course. You pick them up earlier on the podcast, because I usually don't get them up on the website as quickly as I should. So listen to the podcast and you'll get each of the questions as we go.
And send in your answers for the possibility of winning a load of Miss Marvel goodies when we do our wrap-up episode.
Absolutely.
Yes. Well, gentlemen, before we head on over to hear what some of our fellow defenders have thought about this show, I just want to say this episode of TV Podcast Industries is brought to you by our supporters on Patreon, including Marianne Morris. Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Marianne.
Thanks, Marianne.
Yeah, great stuff, Marianne. Thank you.
Yes, you too can be like Marianne, and you can support us on any monthly amount over on patreon.com/TV Podcast Industries. Or if you'd like to support us with a one-off donation, you can do that too by popping on over to buymeacoffee.com/TVPI, where you can buy us a coffee. Keep our editor-in-chief in caffeinated modes. But we understand, of course, that not everyone has that ability. You can also support us by subscribing to the podcast, sharing it with your friends, sharing it with your babbies, sharing it with your mammies, your nannies, your grannies, your aunt grandies, your huge families who are over for a wedding. Make sure they're all listening to it in the background of your wedding celebrations, because remember, sharing the podcast is what, John?
Sharing the love.
Absolutely. And a huge thank you to everybody who's been sharing the podcast. We're up in the top 20s in the US and in the UK for after shows for podcasts. So thank you so much to all of you who are listening to our coverage of both The Boys and of Miss Marvel as well. So I know they're very different shows, but thanks so much for listening along with us.
Yes, thank you so much. But as you're listening along, you can also hear your thoughts on this podcast. So we'd love to hear your thoughts on Miss Marvel. So remember, if you want to get us your thoughts on up to episode 3 read out, and you want to kind of just type them up, you can email us to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com. You can also join our group at Facebook on facebook.com/groups/TV Podcast Industries, or why not head on over to Twitter at TV Pod Industries, where you can talk to us, give us your thoughts, your feelings, everything in between, and we will read it out on this show. Because you know what? We've already got an email. It's an email from the one and only Coffee and Vodka, who had this to say. Greetings, fellow wedding crashing defenders. Who would have thought Disney would have become such an ambassador of non-Caucasian based culture? Last month, Moon Knight, now Ms. Marvel, and if counting fictional nations, Black Panther way back in the pre-COVID days. Mm-hmm. Well, that's so long ago. It feels like a decade.
Well, Wakanda Forever is coming at the end of this year, so not long to wait to go back to Wakanda, so that's kind of cool.
True. Coffee and Vodka went on to say, this episode was as educational as it was entertaining and informative to the plot. Mm-hmm. Loving the representation. I only have 2 questions. Are the Jinn really wrong in their disregard of our planet, in their desire to get back to theirs, considering everything they've witnessed us do to it? And is Bruno, actually Peter Parker in a new identity? or do we all white teenager males look the same? Finally, I hope the second bangle is found in Karachi. Just the one makes the completionist in me very itchy. 5 damage control agents, Kree carcasses, and train spottings out of 5. Coffee and vodka.
Excellent coffee and vodka. I think we talked about why Matt Lintz might remind you of Peter Parker.
Yes.
That's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I really do think that the second bangle will be found, and we will get a 2-bangled Miss Marvel out of it. Who knows? But then, obviously, Derek, you're saying maybe she doesn't need the bangle in the future.
Yeah, well, it was interesting. There's a couple of pointers to it. Definitely, when they say you need 2 of these to open the gate to get back to the other dimension, we're definitely going to see the second bangle. But she also called out, well, Cameron was born on this planet. Cameron was born in this dimension. Can he use the bangles? So I think we're going to see Cameron put those bangles on to help
there might be a little bit of a team up there. And of course, speaking of bangles, I keep thinking of the great 90s pop group as well.
I hate to tell you because it always makes you feel old, John. 80s pop group.
It was 80s. Okay, well, I listened to them in the 90s, shall we say.
No, you didn't. Manic Monday, their biggest number one hit.
Okay.
Written by Prince.
Yes. The
1984.
Bangles. What a fab group that was. And of course, completely with Coffee and Vodka as well, around just the whole representation. I mean, even with Shang-Chi as well, in terms of Southeast Asian representation as well. So yeah, good stuff. Thanks, Coffee and Vodka.
Yes, thank you so much, Coffee and Vodka.
Absolutely. Jerry sent us an email. He says, hey guys, again, the show is fine. We have villains now, the Jinns. Jinns, Kree, Skrull, are they from the Negative Zone? I mentioned the Negative Zone because the name drops some possible Fantastic Four possibilities. Wedding stuff was great in this episode, learning about the cultural differences. I think her mother knows more than she's letting on as well. Fight scenes were serviceable. Again, the show is for a different demographic. I will still watch to see where this mystery is going. How will Kamala get to Pakistan? Last week's show was light like lemonade. This week, a root beer float. Jerry in Niceville. Excellent stuff, Jerry. There's definitely stuff to enjoy, at least, I think, in the episode. I'm glad you're picking out and enjoying the bits that you find interesting.
Exactly. And just think, if you get a squishy or a slushy this next week, like basically all the sugar put in it, just remember that episode with the pixie dust in The Simpsons. You can just kind of sugar high yourself into the final 2.
Yeah, exactly. And it's really good that, that fellow defenders are learning and seeing the culture as well, as both Jerry and Coffee and Vodka. I mean, I know that's same for me in terms of seeing the dance sequence. It was just like fantastic. And I think that was why I just really connected with Bruno, where he joins in and is just so up for it. Yeah. Really, really good. It kind of took me back a little bit as well to in secondary school. Okay. It was an Indian belly dancer. And so yes, when I think it was like second year in secondary school, suddenly had to start doing sort of belly dancing. We're all like going, okay, what's going on here? But ultimately, by the end of it, everyone got into it with the teacher, which was this Indian lady with her, all the different, clothes and bangles and jewelry that she was wearing. It was really, really good. Really exciting stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Always,
not that I can remember any of my belly dancing techniques, to be honest. I tend to do more dancing whilst falling asleep standing up now.
The John B, as it's been named. Yes, that's true. Excellent stuff. Yes. Thanks so much, Jerry.
Yeah, thanks, Jerry. And John Daniel says, holy moly, just the theme music should have warned me this was a heavier episode. At first I thought it was going to be a flashback orientated episode, but I was pleased that it jumped to Kamala present day. I was hoping it would be a training montage with Cameron's mum, revealing everything the bangle can do, and then it focused on culture and family in such a delightful way. Then the bombshells. The Jinn and the Department of Damage Control are the big bads. ? Cameron actually cares about Kamala, and Brown Jovi. I love the fight scene in the banquet hall. We got to see the big fist that, being completely new to Miss Marvel, I've only seen on all the comic frames online. I was dying for Kamala to be able to be honest with her family, but I guess she couldn't. We'll see if Kamala's mum goes to Karachi with her. I love this show. John from Chicago. Thank you so much, John. Yeah, it's interesting. Are the Jinn bad guys or just misunderstood? A bit like Coffee and Vodka saying there. You know, I love the fact that Kamala says it. You know, these have been the stuff of nightmares for her as a child. It's so ingrained. These stories, this folklore, that have been passed down. I mean, even we see with Youssef, when speaking to Bruno, he goes, I haven't heard that one before, you know? So it's also that projection, you know? I guess it's like wolves and Red Riding Hood, people, or woods, you know, you kind of are afraid of wolves or dark woods. I mean, just look at Blair Witch Project. So I guess all these different things are just really kind of interesting things to kind of just conjecture about and think about, as we go through the series.
And I think we can definitely say not all Jinn are, because Kamala is Jinn.
Yeah.
And that is what we've learned in this episode. She is descended from the Jinn. So she has that blood in her. Cameron descended from Jinn and has the blood inside him. They both seem like good people. But if this group, which it seems to be, is the Jinn that has been banished to Earth from another dimension, it's likely that they are. That group is a bad group of Jinn. As for the DODC, the Department of Damage Control, and whether they're the big bads or not, they walked in here and saved a whole group of people at a wedding from an attack that was happening on them. I wonder if that is the twist here, that they aren't bad people. They did do some very stupid things walking into the mosque at the beginning of the episode, trying to find Kamala. But the way they went in and saved everybody by using their weapons and taking them out, they may be like S.H.I.E.L.D., let's say, as we've said before.
Yeah. And I really hope
antagonists, I think is the word I was looking for. Yes.
I really hope that Muniba, Kamala's mum, goes to Karachi with Kamala as well. I think that would be really good, because I just thought that little talk in this episode, it just felt so kind of natural. Yeah. Whether a trip to Karachi is on the cards ultimately after a wedding, I don't know.
Well, yeah. Yeah, I can't imagine Kamala going there on her own anyway. No. I wonder if that's the impetus for them to go there. If Kamala shares her story with her mother, as was mentioned in the feedback, maybe Muniba knows a lot more than she's saying. So
I think
once they connect on the story and actually tell the truth and be honest with each other, maybe they develop a much better relationship together, and then they go back to visit Nana.
Absolutely.
Maybe her mum has the second bangle.
Potentially, yeah.
That could be it. Like, we don't even need to go Karachi. She's like, we went all this way just for, I have it in my back pocket.
Yeah. But that's great stuff, John. I like yourself. Also loving this show. So yeah, good stuff. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, John. Over on Facebook, Brandy Elise Anderson had this to say. I have to start off by saying that this episode helps me see a different side of how smart this show is with its Scott Pilgrim type visual effects. I didn't even really notice the lack of until Kamala was texting with Cameron and it was just normal text bubbles. And it made perfect sense to me because Kamala is more grounded in reality in this episode. So the visual effects that we see through her eyes are more grounded in reality. And that made me realise this represented more of Kamala's real life as she starts to fantasize less, like a coming-of-age story. Also, did I see 10 ring symbols? Yes, you did. I thought the Kree at first when I saw the severed arm, but then once I found out that the Jinn, I went, oh, genie.
Ah, yes.
And then the bangle, and the fact that there had to be a second one besides my need for a symmetrical look. Did I imagine waves going on behind Kamala when she was talking to Cameron's mother? And a Dr. Selvig name drop. Thanks, Brandy. Yeah, I didn't really see the waves when you're talking about it. The waves I did see was when Cameron's mother and Kamala were kind of there and the train, the illusion or the vision of the train was coming to them and they were holding the bangle. I saw that, but I didn't see it earlier on. So maybe there was two elements and it was just kind of a blink and you'll miss it piece. But thanks for all your feedback on this one anyway.
Yeah, absolutely, Brandy. Some really, really good feedback there. Do you think we're going to get Will Smith's genie as being in a flashback now, getting his arm severed off wearing the bangle?
I hope
just one-handed, just a one-armed kind of Will Smith walking around. Oof. He can't slap anyone then.
I really hope
he's only slapped them once.
There you go. Thanks so much, Brandy.
Yeah, thanks, Brandy.
Dr. Bob Phillips sent in his thoughts about the episode. He says, have to say, I keep on being open-mouthed by just how much this show is embedded in the world of a second-generation immigrant hero living her authentic, semi-interdimensional existence. I nearly wept with the recitation of God is Great, previously misaligned with only evil terrorists in TV shows and movies, and the bold call-out of the split and self-police approach, which is a lever of oppression. Also noticeable that while cute English accent boy Cameron isn't a baddie, the British occupying forces, not a thing we've seen enough on UK telly, certainly were destructive with their willful burning of the sacred space and looting. Excellent, Dr. Bob. Yeah, one of the things that is really present in the show, whether it's in the background or really central to the story, is the implications of what's going on for this Muslim family and this Muslim community and their connection to Pakistan and what's going on. So I really like that that's all in there for you to see, or you can watch the overarching fun of the episode with Kamala and what's going on with her and her friends. But they are delving into all of those elements in small ways and big ways. It's really good.
Yeah, really good stuff. Dr. Bob, completely agree with you as well that the notion of showing sort of what British Empire did, in the countries that it was, it wasn't just railway lines, but it was a lot of, divide and conquer and whatever else, a lot of violence. So yeah, really good stuff.
Next up, Banshee's origin story in Ireland, featuring the British Empire.
Well, exactly. And yes, I might quite enjoy that.
Yes, could be good.
And thank you, Dr. Bob. Finally, Salim Akisla says, the family content continues to be astounding. They got me again this week when the mum was talking about adjusting to life in the US. That said, I'm glad we started getting into the superhero part of the story. I've had problems with the pacing of just about every D+ Marvel show other than WandaVision, because they start so slow and then rush to a finish. There was some exposition, but the show efficiently handled the introduction of the Jinn and their story. I didn't expect Cameron to go against his mother, so well done there too. The wedding was beautiful until it was interrupted for a pretty good first fight sequence. Brown Jovi was hilarious. Loved the singer plugging every cultural event he could think of, and then going into Living on a Prayer was a great touch. Looks like we're off to Karachi next week.
Exciting.
Thanks so much, Salim. I think I'm kind of see what you're saying there, because like I was just saying there earlier on the podcast, I actually thought we would get Amir's wedding right at the end. It would be kind of free from the complexities of what's happening to Kamala and then with the Jinn arriving in this episode. So to have it all happening in this, I thought it was really good, because it frees up to really focus on Kamala and, as you say, move into the more superhero aspects to it. Whose is the blue arm? Is it another genie, as we would see from Walt Disney? Is it a Kree? I mean, and I know it's in what is now Pakistan as opposed to India, but a lot of the different gods from, say, certainly Hindu would have blue skin. And I think even from Moon Knight, I think the ancient Egyptian sort of half dead, half zombie, sort of priest that would have pulled out the lungs out through the nose and stuff during embalming. They had a touch of blue. I think they would ceremonial sort of put different paints and colours on their skin. So
this is reminding me of conversations that were going on when Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. had a blue-skinned alien mentioned in an episode, and everybody was trying to work out what's the possibilities.
Exactly.
There's thousands of blue skin characters within the Marvel universe, and within the
even the Irish used to paint their skin blue, I think.
I don't know. I think you might be thinking of the Scottish and Braveheart there, John.
Okay, the Celts then, more widely.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, we could take the Celts.
yeah. Blue is an easy enough colour to create. It's a pastel colour. So definitely could have used it.
It is. Yes, I think you are. Definitely the Celts did do that. Yes, thank you so much, Salim, and thank you everyone else for your feedback. Guys, it's been great. But we are running to the end of this podcast because we need to go to Karachi as well. We also need to go to another show. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, fellow defenders, remember, if you are not subscribed, subscribe over at tvpodcastindustries.com. Yes, and don't forget as well, over at patreon.com/tvpodcastindustries, you can support us, or you can just head on to Apple Podcasts or any other podcast catcher and all those ones and subscribe, leave us a review, go to Spotify and do 5 stars, because you know what, that really does help as well. We as well, at a very different pace and a very different style of show, we are also covering The Boys season 3, and that is this week's episode. Oh boy, it's a special one.
Well, I'm going to say it right now. If you're watching this episode of Miss Marvel and you've enjoyed this episode of Miss Marvel, you need a very different taste for the next episode of,
Yes.
of
Or a
The
different
Boys.
mindset.
Very
coming
different.
into, well, dare I say it, into the next episode of The Boys.
Episode 6, yes.
Yes.
Coming out this week. We have already recorded our podcast. It will be out directly after the episode airs on Prime Video. But, yeah, very different show. Very different show.
Very, very, very much so. We'll also be covering, probably in a couple of weeks, we'll be covering season 3 of The Umbrella Academy. That all drops this week. So if you are interested, make sure you head on over to netflix.com and watch Umbrella Academy season 3. Catch up on all the bits we missed. Let us know your thoughts for each and every individual episode, or just what you thought of the overall season. And when we cover it in a couple of weeks, there's just a lot on, we will make sure that we get your feedback in there.
Yeah, we can say we watched the first 4 episodes of Umbrella Academy before it came out, and it's really good. Really enjoying the
Yeah,
season.
fantastic.
It's looking forward to talking about it, but there's no point in talking about all 3 shows in the same week. Way too much
No.
going on at the moment, and then we'll suddenly have a gap, a dead zone where nothing's happening between 2 shows.
Or a negative zone,
Or a
if
negative
you
zone,
will.
Exactly. We only do positive zones on TV Podcast Industries.
Yes, so let us know your thoughts on the Umbrella Academy season 3. We will be back for The Boys. We'll be also back for the next episode of Miss Marvel next week. There you have it. We have come to the end of this podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll speak to you again soon.
Absolutely. Speak to you again next time. Bye.
Yeah, thanks so much, fellow defenders. Great chatting with you. Remember, keep watching, keep listening, and keep defending. Bye.
Bye.